The following is a presentation of Morning Drive Media.
Broadcasting from the still beautiful but slightly hot Studio City, California, this is the Napzok Files, and I'm Ken Napzok, back on the horse again, the broadcasting horse here. The studio has been shut down for a little bit due to trips to Comic-Con and other things of life taking me away from my beloved microphones here, but we're back in a big way with a guest that I'm so happy to have on because I recently met him through the Schmoes Know movie show, and he came in like a whirlwind of happy. And if you know me, I am the opposite of a whirlwind of happy. I'm a tornado of sad. So to get this man in my life for even 2 minutes, I was like, "Who this? I want this guy around all the time." So here he is from Access Hollywood and a lot of other things, including Profiles, a new show on the Schmoes Know network with Alicia Malone. This is Scott Mantz.
Well, Ken, thanks for having me, my friend. It is great to be here. We got so much to talk about. We're going to be here all night.
We're going to be here for about 4 hours talking about the Beatles. So
I'm down with that.
That's one thing we have in common. When I followed you on Twitter and I saw your, I was like, oh, now I even like this guy more.
Yes, sir.
I love this guy. Now I want to get right into what people will recognize if they've been around you for 2 minutes, and I want to dive right into what drives that. Your enthusiasm for life.
I wear my heart on my sleeve.
Love it.
I get very excited about the things that I love, and I'm not afraid to hide it.
Right.
Now, when I was a kid, that was a little bit tough because when I was growing up and I was just
in Philly, right?
In Philadelphia, Northeast Philadelphia,
Okay.
where I'm from. Lived there till I was till 1991. Moved out here. Never looked back. Now, when you're that young, when you're a kid in the 80s growing up, and you profess your love for Star Trek, that is not cool. That is not cool.
Back then, no.
No, back then.
No, yeah.
The geeks did not inherit the earth. But the beauty was that I've been very, very lucky in that I've turned the things that I love into a career. I did a lot of work with Star Trek, and now I'm doing a lot of work with movies.
Okay.
Two things that I really, really love the most. And I really feel very lucky. I'm grateful.
Right.
Got a lot of good things going on in my life. I don't take anything for granted.
Yeah.
And I just feel like the energy and enthusiasm that I have, it's pure, it's genuine.
Yeah.
It works both ways. If I don't like something, I'm very vocal about it. If I love something, I'm very vocal about it.
Oh, I got to see that side of Mantz, the mean Mantz. No, yeah, and that's the thing. When you're around you, that was the first appearance you had on the Schmoes Know show, and you saw my new segment. You were so very kind in your appreciation of my segment, and it's for a person like me. Sometimes it's hard to take someone going, "I really like what you did." Everything, it could be easy to say, this guy's just kind of crazy. He's yelling and pit boss, and yeah. But I quickly learned, no, it comes from a very sincere point in your soul. That's ingrained.
Okay, first of all, last night I went to see Paul McCartney at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
And before we really get into that, I met up with one of my colleagues there, this guy named Buddy Singer, and we were talking, and I was so excited to be there, and I was like, I had the fist pumped, I was just ready to go, and the people sitting behind him are like, wow, this guy's got a lot of energy. And he goes, he's like this all the time. But Ken, I got to tell you, when I did Schmoes Know radio show, the Schmoes Know movie show for the first time, it was the most fun, really, that I ever had talking about movies.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. I had an absolute blast. And sitting on the couch, watching the pit boss in action, I swear to friggin' God, I was not worthy. I was just bowing to you. I was blown away.
Literally.
This guy is a friggin' rock star. I want to know this guy. I want to be friends with this guy.
Yeah.
This was brilliant. And I just heard the work you did for us on Profiles for me and Alicia. And I was like, that was great.
Absolutely.
And actually, when Alicia and I were putting together our rundown for Profiles, and we had a couple of segments we knew we were going to pre-tape, I said, how about having the pit boss do the VOs for this? And she's like, yes, great idea. And I was like, I heard it for the first time. I just came to the taping. I heard it for the first time because I didn't get the file until this afternoon. And I was like, Could not have been better.
Awesome. Well,
could not have been better.
You know, I have a lot of things going on, and I'm busy and everything, and then she emailed me. I could not say no to Alicia Malone.
Yeah, she's great.
You too.
She's
but
the
come
best.
on, I couldn't say no to her. I was like,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. I knocked it out Friday night trying to get those done for you guys. So I'm going to hopefully we do that going forward.
Yes,
That's
we
gonna
are.
Be,
That's the plan.
Good.
Yep.
So growing up, you said you had to, being a Star Trek fan, you had to keep your heart on your sleeve or under your sleeve. But at what point did you kind of become this happy guy?
Well, when I was growing up, I was a little shy. I was very shy. I really was.
That's a transition, buddy.
Well, because it was a huge transition, and people who knew me back then and see me now, of course, they're all Facebook friends because they're all like, "Oh my God, that guy's on TV!" Like, well, you didn't have this appreciation for me when I was like 14, but I was not into sports, at least not back then, and I tried to play, and I was horrible at it. So that wasn't good.
Me too.
And I mean, I liked sports. I mean, I love sports now, but at the time I just wasn't into it because I wasn't good at it. And I found my friends, so to speak, in Star Wars and in Star Trek. I read Spider-Man comics. Then I discovered the Beatles. And to this day, these are things that I really, really love. But I think what really brought me out of my shell, what really just sort of made me embrace the happy-go-lucky side of me, was when I was a sophomore in college. I got my first job, and it was waiting tables.
So you have to talk.
So you have to talk. Bingo. So suddenly I'm doing this job where I didn't really like to talk, and suddenly I have to. And I was like, hey, this talking thing, it's pretty good.
Well, okay, then let me ask you that. That's a great point because I've been very shy. If you knew me 10 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation because I was still shy in the corner.
That is surprising.
But despite being on stage at the Groundlings and doing stand-up off stage, and I still generally quiet. You put me in a room with 12 people, I'm going to shut up. But at some point, like I'll go out with the schmoes and everything. I'm finding myself over the last 5 years have changed dramatically. At some point, I believed it. Was that the point when you're being a waiter that you started to believe that you could be this happy, talkative, communicative person?
That was the dividing point between the life I had and really the life I have now.
That's a great phrasing. I understand what you mean because I have that too.
Yeah, it is really when I became Mantz. It is when I became this guy because I realized that not only did I need to talk to the customers, but by being up and vibrant and playful and jokey with them, they tipped me a little nicer.
Sure.
And it really just sort of took off from there. And when I went away to school, I definitely liked college a whole lot better than high school. Yeah. But really, I had the life I had in Philadelphia, and then I have the life I have in L.A. And when I moved to L.A. on December 21st, 1991,
wow,
that was when I was born.
Gotcha.
Really. That was when I was born because growing up in Philadelphia, my parents are great. They really, really are. But my brother, who's 5 years older than me, bit of an overachiever, really good at sports, really good at school, very, 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 very successful in his work and his career. And it was hard growing up in that shadow. I had to leave Philadelphia to invent myself. Really, when I moved out here, that's what happened. I started with nothing. I knew nobody, and I was able to build my life and my reputation without anybody saying, like, hey, say hi to your mom, or hey, how's your brother doing?
Hey, Scotty, how you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. None of that. So all the things that sort of defined me, made me who I am, especially where it came to the hobbies, I've been really lucky, man. I've been able to turn that into a career. For the first 10 years I was living in LA, I worked for this company called Creation Entertainment. They run sci-fi conventions and Star Trek conventions that I went to when I was a kid. So for like all this time to be able to work in I met all the Star Trek stars and everything, and for the first like 5 or 6 years that was cool, but then it turned into a job, and that's what I need, But then the internet became viable.
Became the internet,
and I started reviewing movies online. Found a voice that I didn't even know that I had. That changed the course of my career. It took me into the direction that I've been following now for 15 years. Reviewing movies, doing stuff as a producer and as a field reporter and as an on-camera correspondent for Access Hollywood and other things. And honestly, Ken, I feel really lucky because lightning struck twice for me. It struck once when I got the job at Creation. It struck twice when I got the job at Access Hollywood.
I'm sure that's a little bit of look. Success is always there's some luck in success, and you're saying lightning strikes twice, but a lot of it, I'm sure, not knowing you during these times, had to be the own momentum you created for yourself, though, a little bit, right?
It definitely was perfect timing for me to reinvent myself for the second time, because if I had tried to now, let's say I've been doing this other job for 20 years instead of just 10, if I tried to do that now, I don't think I would have succeeded at it. I was at the right place at the right time, because back in the late 90s, you had a lot of people who were writing reviews and commentary about movies on the internet, not getting paid for it, doing it because they just love to do it.
Right.
And that I was able to turn that into a career. But if I had waited longer to do that, it wouldn't have happened, or I certainly wouldn't have been able to make a living at it.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's definitely a cross of that I love doing it, and that I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time. But I also feel really blessed, like someone's sort of looking out for me.
Sure.
And
probably Mike Schmidt from
Mike
back in the day. Yeah,
he shoots, he scores. Way to go there, Pit Boss.
Well, yeah. Are you a Philly fan?
Yes,
Phillies
of
fan?
course.
Okay.
Gotta be.
Yankee fan myself,
Yes.
but Schmidt, Michael Jack Schmidt with his 500th home run.
Damn,
Harry
right on.
Harry Kalas.
Harry Kalas.
Harry
Oh my
Kalas,
God,
man.
look at you go.
Love Harry.
Impressive.
May he rest in peace.
Most impressive.
Absolutely impressive. Most impressive. We got to get you on the Star Wars show too to talk Star Wars, but Star Trek's your thing, huh? Is that
okay? I love them both.
Which is, folks, it's possible.
It is possible. It's like the Beatles and the Stones. You can love them both, but one's going
to get your soul.
One's going to get my soul. Obviously, you know, the Beatles got my soul. But when it came to the great Star Trek versus Star Wars debate, I will always love Star Trek more. Always.
Okay. I'm open to hear why.
Well, here's why. Well, first of all, I discovered Star Trek before I discovered Star Wars.
Okay.
But if I am going to zero in on the one thing about Star Trek that just holds it above Star Wars more than anything else, it is William Shatner. It is James T. Kirk.
Shatner himself.
Shatner, James T. Kirk, his performance as Kirk. He was the ultimate hero for me growing up. I wanted to be just like Captain Kirk. I still want to be just like Captain Kirk. I would watch Star Trek and watch certain episodes to get me pumped up before I went out on dates. Because Shatner...
Which ones?
Kirk had a way with the women.
One of the best things about Pine taking over the role is he still has that essence to me a little bit.
Yeah, he does.
But Shatner.
Shatner. And remember the episode, it was called The Conscience of the King.
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I might have seen it.
In this episode, Kirk is trying to seduce the daughter of a man that he thinks is a killer. Okay. So he's just trying to sort of like seduce her to try and get more information out of her. Gotta love Captain Kirk. But so while he's romancing her, she says something to him like, are the women in your world still women? And he says, with this smile and this twinkle in his eye, worlds may change, galaxies disintegrate, but a woman always remains a woman.
I did not see that.
And when I would go out on dates with a woman I really, really liked, I would say that line, Ken worked like a charm.
So you quoted Kirk.
A charm. No one knew it.
Yeah, no girl picked it up. They just...
But also, listen, the original series, even when I was growing up in the 70s and the early 80s, the effects of the special effects were definitely cheesy.
Sure.
But what made it endure for me was produced at a time when something like that had never been done before.
Correct.
So the only way a show like that was going to survive, much less endure 50 years down the line, is because of great writing, great characters, and great performances. A lot of people make fun of Shatner because he overacts and he is so dramatic.
Yeah.
But he's a Shakespearean-trained actor, and at least for the first 2 seasons of that show, because the third season wasn't really very good, but the first 2 seasons of that show, he was right on the money.
Yeah.
You watch episodes of that first season, like the episode with Joan Collins.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that one.
Yeah, everyone.
That is a perfect episode. That's the Citizen Kane of Star Trek episodes.
Well, you got to meet some of my friends who are big Star Trek fans. You can sit and they do a show too. I'm also high school friends with a guy named Manu Intorame who was played a Borg in Deep Space
Oh, very
Nine,
cool.
I believe. I got to get him on the show too.
But listen, I do love Star Wars. I mean,
I know you do.
I really do.
And I respect your decision to go with the Star Trek. But by the way, to all my younger listeners out there, maybe struggling in your romantic life, perhaps if you play Captain Kirk to yourself in your room, like Mantz did years ago, you will find success.
I'll tell you, you got to do it.
The person of your choice.
He did it for me. He did it for me.
Maybe I should have done that years ago. I would have broken out of my shell a lot sooner.
But you know what's interesting about Star Wars? And when I saw Star Wars for the first time, I saw it that opening weekend in May of 1977.
You were there for it.
I was there for it. I was 8 years old, sat on my dad's lap because of what the show was sold out. And I'll just never forget that image of the Star Destroyer flying over Tatooine. It kept going. It kept going. It kept going. I said, damn, that thing is a lot bigger than the Starship Enterprise.
I actually was one in my parents' arms in the back of a Volkswagen van at a drive-in theater, and they watched Star Wars: A New Hope. I wish I'm certainly happy where my age is now today, but though of course you've been a couple years older. But look at those arms, man. We got to talk about your shape. Holy man, you're ripped. You're ripped.
Like the gun show.
I just had 3 tacos today. I wish sometimes I had that experience of being able to consciously know what I was watching, and at the same time be blown away by that first image.
But back then, like when you're 7 or 8 years old, it's not like I had a whole lot of movies under my belt that I had the perspective. Sure. I up to that point, most of the movies I'd seen were things like Escape from Witch Mountain.
Right.
I had only really just started seeing grown-up movies in the last couple of years up to that point, like King Kong and Murder by Death and Foul Play, movies like that. But when you're that young, when you're 8 years old, 3 years is a big deal.
Yeah.
So when Empire came out in May of 1980, that was really the movie that did it for me, because it is not just a great Star Wars movie. It's one of the best movies ever made, period.
I would agree.
It is just perfect. The screenplay, the darkness. The first movie was a battle between good and evil, and the second movie made it personal. The fight between Luke and Vader on Bespin.
Yeah.
It just went on. It kept going. It kept going.
It goes for a while, yes.
When you watch that lightsaber battle, every other lightsaber battle that comes after it just doesn't have the same impact, because it kept going. And I remember when I was a kid watching the commercials for Empire Strikes Back before I saw the film. I'll never forget the image of when Vader is holding his lightsaber to Luke's face, and Luke's face was all swollen because he had gotten the crap kicked out of him. He was clearly out of his league. And then watching that film at the Neshaminy Theater, the premiere 2, at 3:45 on a Saturday.
I love it.
When Vader says, "I am your father," 300 jaws hit the friggin' floor. And everybody went, what? And no one in their right mind could have possibly imagined
no one saw it going
that was true.
Yeah.
Everyone thought he
they
was
didn't,
lying.
They thought he was,
They thought he was lying. I thought he was lying. For 3 years,
I think James Earl Jones thought he was lying when he read the thing.
Yeah, because in the documentary, he
Empire
said,
Dreams
he's lying.
He's
lying. It's a perfect movie. And there's so many great scenes in that film. I love the AT-AT battle.
Yeah. Oh, wait, you call it AT-AT too, huh?
Well, that's what it is. All-terrain armored transport.
Right, AT-AT.
Or a Snowwalker?
No, it's a battle between me and Maude Garrett, my co-host on Jedi Alliance.
Okay, what does she say?
She says AT-AT. And
it's AT-AT.
I'm fine. I'm having you on the show. That's when we're going to debate that on air. And
she calls it AT-AT.
She's not the only one. I have found a large number of people. I just learned this in the last year.
What do you call it?
I call it the AT-AT.
Okay.
Now, an AT-ST is a little all-terrain scout transport from Return of the Jedi and from Empire 2. A little brief shot on Hoth.
Brief shot of him walking around.
On Hoth. But, yeah, I grew up calling it an AT-AT.
Yeah.
All my friends call it an AT-AT. My generation, which you were in the same generation in theory, we call it AT-ATs. I'm finding a lot of other people younger, and Maude is a little younger. In all her beauty and glory, she's a little younger. They call it AT-ATs.
I wonder what Alicia calls it.
Well, she'd be like, I don't know. I don't really.
Yeah, right.
Star Battles? What is that? Wow, that's sorry. Side note.
But wait a minute. Empire Strikes Back. That's see. You called it the AT-AT when you were younger.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I called it the Snowwalker battle.
Sure, absolutely. Imperial Walker too. But
Imperial Walkers. That scene. Okay. What's great about that scene? The setup of that scene.
It's one of my favorite sequences in all the
movies,
in all the saga, in all movies. Yeah, absolutely.
Because with the first Star Wars, A New Hope, ended with the big battle on the Death Star.
Right.
Empire started with the big battle,
right,
led to the personal battle at the end.
Yes.
But nothing like that had ever been done. It wasn't in space. It was on the ground. It was
on the ground.
And the AT-ATs, Mark Garrett, the AT-ATs were walking like elephants. I've never seen it. It was so imaginative.
Well, and you got to see it in the theater, you lucky dog. But I've talked about this on the Far, Far Away podcast with Christian and Tiffany Smith, and I'm sure I'll bring it up several times on Jedi Alliance on the Schmoes Know Network. But one of my favorite moments is as a kid, and I saw Empire last because I saw Jedi first. Because again, a little younger,
poor thing.
a little younger. So the first one I saw was Jedi. So I knew Luke was his dad was who this guy was. Saw New Hope, then I saw Empire. Now it's all within a year or so after Jedi came out of the theaters. Bootleg VHS copies got to my house or something, But that moment when the when the Rebel troop is looking through his little binocular thing there, and he sees the foot come down. Shiver, chills moment.
Now
scared me.
When I was listening to oftentimes, because another thing you have to know about me is that I'm a runner. I run marathons. I've run 20 marathons in the last 9 years. Yeah. But a lot of times what I listen to on my headphones, yes, I listen to the Beatles, and I have a McCartney mix, but I also listen to soundtrack music, and the soundtrack to The Empire Strikes Back, John Williams, one of his best scores. And on the soundtrack, you hear the music that would have been played over that scene. But Irvin Kershner, the brilliant director of The Empire Strikes Back, when the rebel forces, when you see him looking through his binoculars and he pans up and down, and you see the foot come down and then it pans back and you see the five walkers, there's no music in that scene.
You're right.
There's no music. Like, you actually hear the walkers approaching before you see them. The ground's
trembling.
Then all the rebel forces jump in, their snow speeders, and then you see the first AT-AT open fire, and then the music cues up. Oh, it's so
I want to go
great.
watch it right now.
I want to watch it right now. And the rebels got their asses kicked in that movie. The
that's
good
what
guys
was different
lost.
Too. The good guys lost. Yeah.
I mean, Han's in carbonite. What's going to happen to Han Solo?
Yeah.
He should have died in Jedi. Should have gone out in a blaze of glory.
I agree with that.
Should have gone out.
It's the Empire Dreams thing with my what I love doing. This is my Lawrence Kasdan impression. I told George Han should have died. He had nothing going for him. And Harrison agreed too, and he walked through Jedi. I think because of that.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Not a lot to do. But hey, chance for redemption now. He's still alive. Episode 7.
Don't you think that's what's going to happen in one of these new films?
He'll go out.
He's going to go out. He's going to get what he wanted.
Yeah.
Which was to die in a blaze of glory.
I think that's why he came back.
Yep. There's no way he just came back just for.
I got to do this for 3 more. No, kill
way.
me now, George. Oh, you're gone, JJ. Kill me now.
You are absolutely right.
Yeah, I think so. What other movies? Star Trek and Star Wars and the big epics and all that kind of stuff. That makes sense to me that you like that because you're part of a guy with your kind of outlook on life. You're an inspirational guy. Epics fuel that.
Definitely,
epics fuel that. What other kind of movies grabbed you early on that put you into the film critic kind of career choice?
Well, just to sort of bring it back to the Beatles analogy, my parents had the Beatles.
We're going to bring it back.
And we're going to keep coming back to the Beatles, you and me. But my parents had the Beatles. Okay, they even though they were older, they were in their 20s when the Beatles were changing the face of everything and anything. See, my Beatle period, my influence, my impact was in the late 70s and the early 80s because of films like Jaws, Close Encounters, the Star Wars trilogy, Raiders of the Lost Ark. These were movies I saw brand new. And I thought that these were the way movies should always be.
Sure.
And of course, they're not.
No.
But when you look at the filmmakers making those movies, like Lucas and Spielberg and Bob Zemeckis, these were films that made me want to do what I'm doing. These were the movies. I saw them when they were new. Yeah. And I remember my parents had seen Raiders of the Lost Ark before I did.
Which I think is one of the perfect movies out there.
Perfect. It's a perfect movie.
It's a perfect movie.
But another movie that really had a big impact on me, and is still one of my favorite movies, if not the favorite of all time, because it meant different things to me at different times of my life, is Blade Runner.
Oh, really?
Blade Runner is my number one favorite, and here's why.
I'm listening.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you something. I'm listening.
June of 1982. This is what happened in June of 1982. On June 4th, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan and Poltergeist opened.
Right.
Okay. June 11th, E.T. opened.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. June 25th, you had The Thing and Blade Runner, all in 1 month.
That's crazy, right?
That is a crazy ass month for sci-fi. Unbelievable. Now I went into Blade Runner thinking, oh, Harrison Ford in a sci-fi movie.
Right.
Bring it on. Well, Little did I know that I was going to go in there, watch Blade Runner, directed by Ridley Scott, walk out of there scratching my head. What the hell was that? And I did not like the movie at all. I thought it was boring. 10 years later, already living in LA for about almost a year, they released the director's cut, which had deleted the voiceover that Harrison Ford was forced to do, added in about 15 seconds of a crucial scene that explains a lot about why people thought that Harrison Ford's character, Rick Deckard, was a replicant. And it really does force the argument. But it just opened my mind to the movie in a completely different way.
Which happens.
And then in 2007, they released the final cut. Ridley Scott just went back and just sort of like gave it a nip-tuck, spruced up some special effects. But the amazing thing about the final cut, and to this day, is that it looks like it could have been shot today. The movie is still ahead of its time. The style, the cerebral aspect of it, the music, Vangelis, amazing score, beautiful score. And I remember when I saw it in 1982, the movie opens up, it says Los Angeles, November 2019. I was a 13-year-old kid in Philadelphia.
Right.
Los Angeles, November 2019. Here I am. I'm living in Los Angeles. November 2019 is 5 years away.
I know that feeling. I grew up a fan of the Robotech cartoon and comic book series in the 80s.
Yeah.
And that starts with like, in the year 1995, the world was at war, and all this kind of stuff. So my question, what I would say to you then, of all those versions of Blade Runner, which one should I watch first? Because I've never seen the movie.
Final cut. What?
I haven't seen the movie.
You've never seen it.
The look on Scott's face, folks. I need an AED to restart his heart.
Excuse me. Let me pick my jaw up off the floor here. Ken.
There's a lot of things I haven't seen, and that's one of them.
My friend.
Yes.
You are about to have your mind blown.
Let's do it.
Watch Blade Runner. In fact, I will bring the Blu-ray over.
Okay.
We will watch it together.
I'm game.
I want to watch that movie with you.
We'll learn together.
I want to watch you watching that movie. This is my mission. This is my new purpose.
Well, see, it's funny is if you're still relatively new to the Schmoes Know world. So your thing is Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
I'm sure Alicia has. Well, she has about 100 movies she wants me to watch. JTE has Gremlins. And my writing partner, Matt Key, who's going to have the Marvel show coming up here on the it hasn't been announced yet. I'll probably sneak it out there, but he'll be hosting the Marvel show on the Schmoes Network. It's Ghostbusters. I have not seen a lot of movies.
You never saw Gremlins.
Never saw Gremlins.
You never saw Ghostbusters?
Never saw Ghostbusters.
Ken,
what's the problem?
What's going on here?
What's the problem? It just, as a kid, as the story goes, and people have heard it now, but here's your turn to digest this.
Yes, let's hear this.
As a kid, grown up in a very small town in a conservative family, and my mom didn't let me watch a lot of R-rated movies or movies with too much smooching or too much war or too much this or that. Could watch Star Wars, a lot of that stuff. There's some movies you'd be surprised I saw. Because of her, I've seen When Harry Met Sally 50 plus times.
Oh, you poor thing.
That's why I grew to love that movie. Pretty Woman. She loved that. I watched that movie with me.
What about Close Encounters?
I have seen Close Encounters.
Okay, we're good. We're cool.
We're good. So, but again, so there's some things I have seen.
Yeah.
But a lot of them slip through the cracks and haven't corrected it because they just weren't in my life. So I don't know what I'm missing by not watching Top Gun.
I got to tell you, Ken, I really hope and pray someday soon, before I get the chance to bring the Blu-ray over, that because they do show Blade Runner from time to time on the big screen, because that's really a place you have to see that movie. Sometimes, the ArcLight in Hollywood, they have special screens, and that's a movie where whenever it is playing on the big screen, I will drop what I am doing and see it.
Okay.
If I have plans, if I have things I have to do, if I have a work thing I have to do, I will figure out a way to make Blade Runner happen on the big screen.
Which I get. So I'll tell you what, if it's playing anywhere before the Blu-ray, we'll find a way to go.
We're there. Yes.
Yeah, but I'm so curious now. And what did the emotional tones change for you? I know you may have grown up, got more mature, and blah blah blah. As a kid, I get it's Indiana. What's going on? It's a serious sci-fi. What changed?
What changed is when I started reviewing movies in 1999.
Gotcha.
Because what happened was, over the years after that, as I was reviewing new films, I went back to movies that I had seen and loved, even many, many times, like a movie like Back to the Future, which I could recite from word for word. And I found that the experience I gained as a reviewer, as a critic, gave me a whole new perspective and appreciation for movies that I already loved, and also it made me second guess and change my mind on movies that I thought that I liked. But, for example, Back to the Future. I remember I saw that movie on July 2nd, 1985, the day it opened.
Yeah.
That's the day that it opened.
I remember my mom and aunt came home that night in my hometown and saw it.
Okay. Oh, did you see that? Did you see
I didn't see it, but they came home telling my dad stayed home to watch me and my sister. My mom's like, that's the DeLorean.
It's so great. And what I remember about that, the reason I remember the day is because we were talking about how I was a little shy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was on a double date. A friend of mine, my friend Barry and Lynn, fixed me up with Joanne. And they picked me up, and I'm sitting in the back with Joanne, and she's trying to talk to me, and I'm giving her one-word answers. I'm really shy. I'm really nervous, and I could just tell this is not going well. I'm sweating. I got the underarm sweat. It's just awful. It's a disaster. What happened, Ken, was I saw Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Loved the hell out of that movie. Like, great Scott, that's heavy. Yeah. And we went out for ice cream after the film. And then I was this guy. I was like, "Oh my God, that was great!" And like everything at the breakfast table is playing out the end of the movie. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious stuff. You know, he doesn't say stuff. I don't know if I could swear on the podcast. You can swear in this.
My mom won't like it, but
just like I was so excited about the movie that Joanne was just looking at me with these love eyes.
Really?
Like she fell in love with me.
Who's this guy with this passion?
But by then I just didn't care.
You didn't care.
Wasn't interested. But Back to the Future is a movie that, in perspective, I realize is a perfect film.
It's one of the ones I'd say are too.
And if I was ever going to teach a screenwriting class, if I was ever going to use a movie as a perfect example, that's the movie I would use. A lot of people use like Casablanca, All About Eve.
Well, so when I say Raiders and Back to the Future, it's a modern 80s movie. But look, screenwriting-wise, they've got all the things you need in the script. And some people might argue, well, that's just kind of a formula. You get your ticking time bomb and your this and your goals and everything. But to me, it's not just about that. It's what you put into what is coming, and you might know that Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones is going to win that battle. You wouldn't assume he was going to die or something, but it's how you execute it and the fun and the experience of those two movies.
Certainly,
the pacing. I mean, Back to the Future seems like a 10-minute movie to me because you start and you're in and it's over and
it's over.
You're wrapped up in it. So those movies versus some of the classics. What's the difference between? How do you differentiate?
Well, like for a classic, when I think of other classics that I've discovered later, like I didn't see Citizen Kane until much later in my life because it was an older film, and I grew up in this diet of like the Hollywood blockbusters that defined the 70s and 80s, the whole new Hollywood thing that turned into the blockbusters that people argue actually destroyed Hollywood movies, at least for the new generation that emerged in the late 60s and 70s. But movies like a movie that I love now, or I've loved for a while, but certainly not when I was a kid, is Apocalypse Now.
Sure.
I mean, that's in my top 5.
I've seen that one.
Absolutely in my top 5. A movie like The Hustler with Paul Newman. That's in my top 10. A movie like the original Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Which is by extension, because they both came out the same year, 2001: A Space Odyssey. It took me 20 years to wrap my head around the scope of what was going on in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and that happened because as a reviewer, I watched movies differently.
Gotcha.
I looked deeper into them. Now, if I'm watching Dumb and Dumber, no, I'm not going to look that deep into it.
Right.
But the first movie I ever reviewed was a movie that people just didn't understand. Was Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, yeah.
So
I still don't understand it, so explain it.
I'm not so sure I do either. Well, what I think's going on Eyes Wide Shut in a nutshell is that it's a dream state. I mean, it's adapted from a short story from back in the 20s called Dream Story, Tram Novelle.
Right, okay.
And, Tom Cruise is going off into the night having all these weird escapades, whatever, or almost escapades. Never quite crosses the line to ruin his marriage. But it was like he was being tested by something else. But like I felt like that was a Kubrick movie that he hadn't done a movie in 12 years since Full Metal Jacket.
Right.
And then 3 months before Eyes Wide Shut opened, Kubrick died.
Yep.
And then Eyes Wide Shut opens, and people are like, what? But I spent the whole weekend, the weekend it came out, writing up this review. And from that point on, I was like, I think I found my calling. And I started seeing movies just so I could review them, and movies like the time, The Insider and American Beauty and Fight Club, Three Kings.
Yep.
The Matrix,
99 was a good year for movies.
A great year.
High Fidelity, Magnolia, all around that time.
Magnolia. Well, let's see what else is there.
A lot of movies that I list in my top 20 are from that year. It seems.
Being John Malkovich.
Malkovich.
It's in my head.
Let me ask you about the role of a film critic and you as a reviewer. And look, if my dad's listening, he's like, I don't listen to film critics. I just see Transformers 4. But it is an art form in itself too, and
absolutely.
I've always said they're professional critics / appreciators, so you know what to look for, what constitutes a good movie. Other people might not be trained to.
It's a little of that, and of course it does come down to personal taste.
Sure.
You have to embrace your taste. Ultimately, it's all just an opinion. I've been asked a couple times over the years, if you're just a reviewer, or do you think of yourself as an artist? And I said, well, what do artists do when they paint, when they write a song? It's a form of expression. What is a review? A review is a form of expression. So just by logic, connecting the two, that makes a review art in its own way.
I agree.
Now, granted, making a movie and writing a review are two completely different things. But if you have an opinion and you can articulate it, whether it's an on-camera review or a long-form review, then you've done your job. The bottom line is, for critics, is to embrace your taste, to state your opinion, and to stand by it. Stand by your opinion. Because, like, when a movie like Transformers opens, Transformers 4, which was awful, like 17% was the number on Rotten Tomatoes, the critic website. So I hated that movie. And a lot of other people I know hated that movie too. So for other critics to sort of stand in solidarity that they hate a movie, or that they love a movie like Boyhood or Edge of Tomorrow or Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, it feels good when you see a movie and you write your review or you come up with your review and then you find out that everyone else felt, or most people felt the same way. But then there are times when you're in the minority. You stand alone.
What's one movie you've had to stand really alone and proud for?
Well, there are a couple, but the one that comes to mind is Spider-Man 3.
I think movie. You mentioned that on Schmoes, at least off there you did, or on there. Yeah, okay.
I got caught to task right away.
Yeah, right away.
But Spider-Man 3, I didn't think it was as good as Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is fantastic.
Okay.
But I do think it has its merits, and I stood by those merits. But to this day, people call me to task on it. And that's going to happen. This movie that just came out earlier this year, Under the Skin, with Scarlett Johansson.
I
did not understand that movie at all when it came out. And I actually passed on doing a review for it because I felt like, I don't think that's the kind of movie I could review after seeing it just once. And that movie felt very Kubrickian in its own way.
Yeah, that's what I heard,
Yeah, and I needed to see it again. And I'm like, okay, I'm still not crazy about it, but I get what's going on. I admired the film more than I liked it. But Ken, I think my legacy of a movie that I really loved,
planted your flag,
that everyone else hated. My legacy is The Love Guru. I laughed my ass off at The Love Guru.
Mike Myers too. I'm a big fan of Mike Myers. I couldn't get past the trailer, buddy.
I saw that movie on June 6th, 2008.
Yeah.
And I confess that I was a little influenced by some substance at the time that I saw it. Went in, saw the movie at the Crest Theater in Westwood, and I laughed my butt off.
Hey, it happens.
It happens. But it's amazing that to this day, some of my friends and coworkers and colleagues and other critics are like, if I say something about a film, they'll be like, yeah, but you love The Love Guru.
Right, they always hold that above you.
They hold it against me.
They hold it against you, man.
But in film criticism, you were a gang of one.
Yeah.
You were a gang of one. Okay. You have to remember that.
Yeah.
You have to remember that.
I get it, man.
You can't just review a movie and expect to be in unison with other critics all the time.
One of my favorite comedies of all time is Dirty Work with Norm Macdonald, which is a horrible movie.
That is a horrible movie.
It's a horrible movie. There's something about that movie that I die laughing from start to finish.
Well, like a movie like The Color of Money with Tom Cruise and Paul Newman came out in 1986, directed by Martin Scorsese. In the body of work of Scorsese's films, that's one of his underrated movies. Okay. Not a great film, but it has a lot of merits. The fact that Tom Cruise held his own with Paul Newman alone is worth the price of admission.
I'm a Cruise guy.
I'm a Cruise guy.
I can get behind Tom.
Tom Cruise. Say what you want about the guy. He's had some issues personally. Whatever.
Sure.
He makes great movies. He's a great actor.
Yeah.
And Edge of Tomorrow is one of his best movies.
I haven't seen it yet. I want to see it because Collateral is one of my favorite movies. I mentioned Magnolia. I love his turn in Magnolia. And there's a lot of other things I think he does really well. He is one of the last movie stars.
Yes, he is.
That came about naturally, as best you can say.
Risky Business. Come on, Top Gun.
Not forced on us by studios who are like, this is the next guy or something like that.
But Color Money is a movie that I've grown to love more over the years, especially after I discovered The Hustler, which was the first movie with Eddie Felsen.
And it was a de facto sequel, right? Is it a continuation of the story a little bit?
Yeah, it was a continuation but it absolutely a standalone movie.
Right.
Did not need to see The Hustler at all.
Gotcha.
But The Hustler is a great film.
Right.
But the thing about The Color Money was when I was watching Life Itself, the brand new documentary about the life and times of Roger Ebert.
I haven't seen it yet, but I heard great things.
There's a clip in the film of Ebert and Siskel going back and forth about The Color Money, where Ebert is saying, I hated this movie. Scorsese should not be ashamed of himself, but, this is I'm going to let you go on this one. Right. I'm sitting there watching a movie, and I went with Alicia Malone. We both watched it, and I looked at her, and I just said, I like this movie.
Right.
So but hey, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. And the thing is that even after 15 years of reviewing movies, when I find myself in the minority of a film, I definitely doubt myself and question myself. Look, Guardians of the Galaxy, big hit.
That's right.
Critics loved it. Everyone loved it. I've heard people say it's the best movie yet from Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. Thought it was fine.
That's right. You're the only one I've heard it's been
It went right through me.
Yeah.
It went right through me.
I loved it, but I would not say it was a particularly creative movie in terms of story. It hit all the points, but I had fun with it.
I had fun with it while I was watching it.
But
I did
over.
Enjoy it.
Probably enjoyed it more than you, but
when I got to my car, I forgot all about it. And Christian Harloff, I emailed him after I knew he saw it because I was like, dude, what did you think?
Yeah.
And he told me, and I'm like, okay, well, fine. I'm in a minority on this movie. Although I have to say, my good friend Alicia Malone felt the same way I did about it. So I was like, thank God.
Like a good piece of candy. It tasted good, and now the experience is done.
I call it a hot fudge sundae. It was delicious, but it went right through me.
or for me, that's tacos. What do you... What are when you're reviewing a movie that isn't The Love Guru or Guardians or something for the mass, pop culture masses?
Yeah.
What do you look for that makes it a good movie? Two, 3 points. Can you wrap it up that quick? I don't know.
Anything that can really that stirs an emotion within me. Anything it could be anything. It could be the dialogue. It could be the score. It could be the cinematography. Absolutely could be the performances. It could be the story. It just depends on what kind of movie it is. Like Edge of Tomorrow was a movie that I did not expect to like at all. I mean, I know that's a more commercial film as an example, but I did not expect to like that movie at all. It just looked like Groundhog Day with aliens, which is what it is. But the way it was shot, the way there were so many great surprises about that film, particularly the level of humor in the movie. It did not take itself seriously the entire way through. There were moments where you're just like, okay, let's have a little fun with this.
I'm intrigued.
But also, Tom Cruise, who has done so many different roles in his career, does something in this movie he's never done before. He plays a coward, a yellow, scaredy cat coward.
Interesting.
So when you do see the film and you see the evolution of his character, like he goes from being a coward to being a hero, he earns it. And it's such a great arc. So that's what I picked up on, was the evolution of his character. Then a movie like Boyhood. Have you heard about Boyhood?
I've heard about it. I haven't chance to see it.
Okay, Boyhood was written and directed by Richard Linklater, who did the Before Midnight, Before Sunset, did Dazed and Confused, and School of Rock.
And Ethan, I've always kind of liked Ethan Hawke, too.
Ethan Hawke.
I think he's an underrated guy, but...
Well, this movie was shot over the course of 12 years using the same actors.
Which is crazy.
He reconvened his crew and his cast every year for 12 years. And watching the little boy in Boyhood grow up throughout the course of the movie, it's a startling reminder of the relentless passage of time. And you're sitting there watching the movie, and the little kid in the film, you see him grow up a little bit.
Right.
Like maybe his hair looks a little different. But then there's this one scene where his hair is really short, and he's also really tall. And you're just like, whoa.
Who is he? Yeah.
It's like a startling. It's better than any kind of special effect you ever could have done, and it's such a big slice of life movie. And I realized that I was watching something. I was having an experience that I've never had before, and will never have again. Because even if I watch Boyhood again, I've already seen it.
Yeah.
You know, that experience you have watching this movie, watching this kid grow up, the same actor throughout the course of the film.
Yeah.
And that had never been done, ever.
Amazing to pull off.
Amazing. And he did pull off, and I think that movie has a real shot at the Oscars.
You think so?
For Best Picture and Best Director because of that. Now, granted, it's only August.
Right.
We haven't hit the season. We have not hit the season yet.
Yeah.
And last year, movies like Gravity and Dallas Buyers Club and 12 Years a Slave, they all opened after September. So who knows?
Because that's what they do. Because it's all a big work. It's all a big business.
The summer movies are about the blockbusters. Fall movies are about the awards.
It's crazy to me now we're in this era where release dates are like the thing now. This wasn't the case like 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
Am I wrong? Or is it just because I now have to report on it for the Schmoes News? It's insane that we know what's going to come out on
2019.
That's crazy to
me. Marvel Studios planted their flag on movie dates for the next 5 freaking years. So, like in 2019, when we're celebrating Blade Runner,
when we're in that
period of time, you're going to see like Captain America 6. You know,
I mean, and I get it from the business standpoint. We've got that point now. It is this machine you have to get into. But as a kid growing up, or even when I was in film school in the mid '90s, when I was breaking into screenwriting and all that stuff, you had your summer blockbusters, your award seasons, your junk pile season, January, February, March. But now that it's like the position in the moving of Batman versus Superman up to March.
Yeah. What do you think of that? What do you think of that?
I think it is an industry changer.
Right.
I think it absolutely is. Now we're a summer blockbuster. Now it's just going to be a year-round thing.
Well, what really changed the mold happened this year with Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Early.
That movie opened on April 2nd.
Yes.
It opened April 2nd.
So that's only 7 days later than when this proposed Batman date.
Exactly. So, because traditionally, for the last, let's say, going back to 1996, the summer used to start on Memorial Weekend.
Yes.
Summer movies, I should say.
Yes.
Then in 1996, Twister opened the first weekend of May. And then all the studios started to put their movies out the first week of May. The Mummy opened the first week of May.
Right.
Spider-Man opened the first week of May. All these Marvel films, like Avengers, I mean, they're all open the first week of May.
You're a smart man when it comes to movies. You know a lot of stuff, Scott.
I feel like I know my stuff. I paid my dues a little bit. But when Captain America: The Winter Soldier opened on April 2nd, and it opened with $95 million. $95 million for April. And it became one of the highest grossing movies of the year.
Yeah.
$700 million worldwide. And that, you think the studios looked at each other and went,
absolutely.
They all looked at each other and went, whoa.
Yeah.
They all looked at each other and went, whoa.
We got to get these things out there earlier.
Screw May. Start April. Captain America 2 jumped the gun on Amazing Spider-Man 2. First of all, it was a better movie than Amazing Spider-Man 2, but it became more about, Captain America, great movie, it's doing really well. Oh, Spider-Man 2 is opening. It's okay. It had a big weekend. It dropped off.
Yeah.
And now Batman v Superman pushed it back just a week earlier.
And now, because at that time, Cap 2's kind of the only option, for big. So, and you get that $95 million opening, and that's the openings are the big things now, too. So release dates and opening weekend numbers. And now you get your only choice out to the fans, and maybe it makes the same amount of money that an other new movie makes later on, but you get the press, too, of we opened with $95 million.
Well, another thing that happened was a couple years ago, Fast 5.
Yeah.
That opened the last week of April.
Oh, I know. I was there.
Yeah. So that was okay. Well, last week of April is a little bit earlier than the beginning of May.
Right.
But when Marvel Disney,
that's a big time now.
It's the big time. Everything's going to change. And the fact that Guardians of the Galaxy in August made $94 million, biggest August opening ever, beating 2007's The Bourne Ultimatum, which opened with $69 million.
It's crazy.
So it didn't just beat it by a few million. It clobbered Matt Damon. Bourne was dead. Yeah. Forget it. It's amazing
yeah,
business.
again, I think the industry it is a business, and
Yes.
people sometimes forget that art is business, folks. If you're those young film students out there working on your artistic script, also have a business plan for it.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, I'm listening.
And I gotta ask this question. I've been wanting to know this question since I first met you.
Yeah.
Where did the Pit Boss come from?
The name, the Pit Boss?
No, the man,
image?
the myth, the legend. Where did the Pit Boss come from?
We'll start with the name. The name itself came from Christian Harloff, who
Okay.
loves to. He's a master at branding, and he doesn't intentionally go out to brand you as something. Things just pop up. Things just so one day, when the show started, I was off. I have a day job, and I was off on Thursdays, so I would show up like I am now in a t-shirt, and I produce a show like that. Well, then my schedule switch. I actually got promoted and went back to full-time suit and tie. My days changed, so now I came straight from work to the podcast with my suit and tie on.
Okay.
So just everyone else is in a t-shirt, those schlubby schmoes with their hats and their t-shirts, and here I am
Scruff,
in a suit. So
right,
it just looked, and I grew a beard out again, and then because I can't face the fact that I am bald, I just grew my hair long, so it's looking it back like Tywin Lannister from Game of Thrones. And then it just came out because of my day job and some of the stuff I've done on my day job, whether it be fighting someone in a knife fight and winning and all that kind of stuff. There's just this. I'm not an intimidating person at my core. Peeling back the layers here in the Pit Boss, but I can come off as, and I have a bit of a temper at times, so sometimes an anger will come out, and my strong Russian jaw. It all just kind of fit together, and it's become this thing.
Well, coming from me, I got to tell you, first of all, just to back up a sec, I mean, I've known Alicia for 3 years. We met at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
We're both covering those press lines. This was 2011. We became instant friends, instant buddies, total connected on obviously on the movie level.
Yeah.
But we just really got each other as people, too. And she's just a warm, lovely, delightful friend. And when I will always be grateful to her for introducing me to you guys, because I just remember
I'm so glad you're in.
when I left that day, I had to go straight from the Schmoes to an Emmy nominee party.
Yeah.
Because as for daytime Emmys, Access Hollywood was nominated and for a daytime Emmy, so all the producers went to this pre-party, and I went home. I changed real fast out of my I think I was wearing a Star Wars t-shirt, and I changed. I put on the jacket, tie, and I'm standing there at this party talking to obviously a lot of people I know, thinking, I wish I was back with the Schmoes. I want to be back with the Schmoes like now.
We've gotten that a lot.
Yeah,
it means a lot to us, but that doesn't mean everyone molds into it as well as you did. You were one of the ones we walked away after that show. We're like, man, that guy. It wasn't just that he had a good appearance; it was like he really fit into what we do here.
Honestly, just the other day with the comics party, when I hooked up with you guys, I was coming home from a screening. I was really tired, and I had to go to New York for the next day because I've been doing the Today Show.
Jet setter, you.
And it's exhausting, but it's fun.
Yeah.
But so I'll just say hi, and then I just have fun, just hang out, talk with you guys.
It worked,
really
and that's
great.
why I think we got a little farther working with Maria Menounos and Kevin, because she had the same experience.
They're great.
Yeah, they're great people.
And Kevin, you talk about, you think I have energy.
Oh, Kevin, yeah.
Kevin makes me look like a manic depressive.
Which is
he's unbelievable, that guy.
With your goodwill and that. I want to talk a little bit about life, then we're going to get into what we really came here to talk about, which is the Beatles.
I can't wait.
You mentioned growing up. Did you have a little problem with women?
Oh, well, sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I find that shocking because it's impossible. Not only are you a good, fit man, good-looking man, this and that, but you're married now.
Yes.
How long have you been married?
I've been married for November 28th will be 5 years.
Outstanding.
I met my wife when I was 38.
Oh, that's how old I am?
Yeah, it took me a long time. Now, I dated a lot. I dated a lot in L.A. I've had girlfriends.
Dating in L.A., let me tell you. Hey. Right?
Yeah. That's a whole other show, my friend. But I've dated, I've had some 6-monthers here and there.
Yeah.
But if you would have told me when I moved out here to Los Angeles when I was 22 years old that I would be not till I was 38 years old would I meet the woman I would eventually marry, never would have believed it. I never imagined it would take that long. Dating in LA is a it's a horrible experience.
I moved out here when I was 22 as well. That's it's a parallel there. So who knows? Maybe this is the year. The things, but I can't even really talk about it. I'm in a complicated situation myself with a woman I love, but it's just not. Life ain't easy. And I've had some long-term relationships, a good 4-year relationship. It's something my listeners know I can't unlock. A lot of it has to do with myself. I'm Steve Martin from Shop Girl. Really am. I'm content to watch them almost push them into the arms of Jason Schwartzman at the end. So that's my own issue. But I love him, and my friend Dan Farron. Dan, if you're listening on riding into work, talented writer and storyteller that you are, he always loves when I get into this conversation with my friends who are married. I am so in awe of those who find the right person and just jump in. I'm sure you never hesitate any point in your life coming to know you, but I'm so obsessed with the idea of how does it work.
Well,
I'm so obsessed with it.
Here's the thing. It works when you know that it's working. You feel it right away.
Really?
And
that thing you hear is real?
It really is. I mean, I had dated a lot, and I've had like the typical sort of cliched experiences where, the dates just go really, really bad, and I just started feeling sorry for myself, and I got fixed up with Andrea. We got fixed up, and we hit it off immediately. Wow. And she's just got a... First of all, she's a knockout. Oh,
she's gorgeous.
Good God.
She's gorgeous. I told you, I met her briefly, probably had to be 2003 or 4 at the latest, at a script reading for my friend Peter Sprites. And I met her in... It was like, it's Andrea. She was in... And I remember thinking, who was that one?
She looks like Mary Jane.
She does.
She looks like Mary Jane.
So when she walked into the party with you at Menounos' house, I couldn't place it until you left. And I was talking with Josh McCouga, and I was like, oh my God, that's the one from the... So yeah, you scored well, my friend. But you deserve it. You deserve it.
I'm telling you, Ken... We met at the Chai Brasserie it's on Alden and Robertson in West Hollywood.
Right.
And I used to live just a few blocks from there. So as I drove home from work and I parked at home and I just walked to the restaurant. I was running a little late and I was walking really fast, and I walking past this woman who's long red hair, black shirt, jeans, just looked fantastic in tight jeans. And I just gave her wow, she's hot. Kept going, walked into the restaurant, looking around, just waiting at the bar, turn around. The woman I was just checking out walks in the door, says, "Are you Scott?" I looked up and said, "Thank you, God." But it was one of those magical moments. We were there for more than 3 hours.
Awesome.
At the end of the night, I'm like, all right, when am I seeing you again? None of this, okay, I'll call you, we'll be in touch. Right. When are you free? What are you doing next weekend? I got to see you again. And I was actually afraid that because I did meet her so late in life and I've been living alone for...
Right, yeah. Now you're getting to where I'm familiar with. Yes.
Okay, all right. So I've been living alone since 91. I never had a roommate when I was in L.A. You get set in your ways.
Yeah.
Okay, and the older you get, I mean, I just felt like, am I even dateable at this point?
Right.
But she went through very similar... What helped us both was that we both lived very similar lives separately. She had dated a lot, never met the guy, always lived alone. So when we got together, we brought the same concerns to the table, just like
gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like anal retentive or anything, but I'm a little obsessive compulsive about how I have my man cave all set up with my action figures and my Beatles dolls.
You're speaking my language.
You know what I mean? Like I'm really, really particular about that stuff.
Yeah.
But because we both had those concerns, it made it easy for us when we did get together, and we're both very open with our feelings. We communicate really great, and we're both unconditionally supportive of each other.
Right.
I got to tell you, I mean, without her support, I'm nothing.
Yeah.
I'm really not. I mean, she has been so unconditionally supportive of me with my career, and I had a health thing that I had to deal with back in February. I had a bad eye problem that kept me basically shut down my life for a month, and she nurtured me back to health. But I lucked out. Well, again, you say you use it lightning striking and lucked out. I'm sure, again, you probably create some of your own goodwill. Not saying that in a mystical sense, but just with your positive approach to life and your goals and everything, you're just probably open to a lot of these things that other people aren't. I definitely try to say yes to a lot of things.
Right. I just know that what am I trying to say? I just know a lot of people, myself included, who are just going to sit in a room alone, miserable. I've changed. Like 5 years ago, things started to change for me. I'm just too busy to be in my room alone, miserable. But I am in my room alone going, I don't think I miss anyone in my bed because I like sleeping alone. I'm worried about that, my friend.
That was something that, the answer to that was get a king-size bed. Mm-hmm. That definitely helped us out. But listen, I mean, I snore a little bit, and she tosses and turns. So, do I sleep better when she goes out for a girls' weekend? Hell yeah, I do.
Okay, I could, but that's the honesty I want from the married men too.
And here's something
I know
else.
It's working, not perfect.
About.
I get it.
Here's another bit of honesty.
Yeah.
So if there's a night where she's tossing and turning, or there's a night where I'm I can't get comfortable, and I start thinking about things, I get anxious about something, and last night I was worried about taping the first profiles because I wanted to make sure that
and your first appearance on the Napzok Files, which is pretty big.
This was a big day. This was a big day. So I went upstairs and I slept on the couch because I knew I was going to toss and turn, and that meant I would keep her up.
Right.
So, but we give each other space. The great thing about Andrea, among other things, is we love being together. Mm-hmm. We make time to be together because we both have different schedules, and we're like, okay, how's your week looking? What screenings do you have? Do you have anything after work? So we're like, okay, so these are the nights we know we're going to be together.
Gotcha.
Same thing with the weekends, but we also give each other space.
And you don't stress about it.
Do not stress about it. We don't stress about it. I mean, she knows that I love to run. She knows that usually if I'm not working on a Saturday morning, she knows I like to go to the beach and run 10 miles and then sit and have a cocktail and maybe write a review while I'm at the beach. She,
See, this is... I think I need to go take both of you to dinner and interview you in detail off air about a successful relationship. That's what maybe I need to do.
But is it perfect? No.
No, and I'm not. And I know I'm not the type that expects it to be.
And nothing ever is.
I'm like you. I'm now at 38, coming on 39 real quick. Where now I'm like, I've had roommates most of my time here in LA, but it's like, this is all right.
Yeah, listen, I
worry about that.
I felt like there was a period of time where I was like, I guess this is it. I'm on my own.
I'm there.
But it just, everything happened at the right time and with the right person.
Because what I'm worried about is not that I'm there depressed. I'm saying I'm there. This is how it's going to be, and going, that seems like a good decision.
Okay, so I've known you now for what, maybe a few weeks, a month or so?
A couple months now.
And what I see in you is someone
Lay it on me.
who had the balls to be proactive with an opportunity, with creating an identity.
Sure.
For work-wise, the pit boss, that is and again, you're talking to someone who sees a ton of movies, who's been working in this business for 23 years, and you saw my reaction when I saw you in action.
Yeah. I didn't believe it at first. It was so supportive.
I couldn't believe it. And I remember after I left and I texted Alicia and I was like, hey, that was really, really great. And I just said again, that pit boss is a rock star. and I was just when we were putting together profiles, I said we gotta get Ken involved.
Yeah.
And she was like, great, let's do it. So no, you got a fan.
And I have you, and one of the reasons I'm a big fan of you, as I'm looking on your cell phone cover over there, is this little band, these cheeky mop tops from Liverpool.
Look at those guys.
The Beatles, man.
The Beatles.
I want to talk about the Beatles with a Beatle fan.
Beatles.
And I have some Beatle fans in my life. My friend Alex Hernandez is a LAPD police officer and one of the biggest Beatle fans I've ever. We were supposed to go to McCartney. He had invited me to go to McCartney last night, months ago, and it just didn't work out. But we've seen this awesome Beatle cover band. We went up for his birthday last year up in the Starlight Bowl above Burbank.
Yep.
And they were I've seen some cover bands. They were so good from where we were sitting, you could squint your eyes and believe it.
Wow.
And we had so much fun just celebrating the Beatles. But the Beatles, for those who know me growing up, man, if they knew me in high school, that's all I was. I grew my hair to match different phases other than the mop top.
You were John Lennon, 1969.
We talked about it, 69, hair, beard. McCartney in spring of 70 during the breakup and the McCartney album.
Yep.
Harrison at one point, All Things Must Pass. I was there, man. I love it. When did you first discover the Beatles?
Well, I discovered Wings before I discovered the Beatles.
Awesome.
This is an amazing thing. So
you're a big Denny Lane fan.
Denny Lane, come on!
Right. Yeah.
In Denny Lane, there's a barber showing photographs. But I was, let's see, I was 6 years old, and my dad even back then was giving me like a few, some change so I could have an allowance.
Sure.
And I went with my brother to Sound Odyssey, which was this music store in Northeast Philadelphia, and he was, I think he bought Yes, Tales from Topographic Oceans, and I bought Band on the Run.
Nice.
Because the cover of that album is very Sgt. Pepper-esque, by the way.
It's a great story behind it, too.
The story of the making of Band on the Run is
Yeah,
another
we
podcast.
talked about that, yeah.
But those songs, to me, were new. I heard Jet, new. I heard Band on the Run, new. High, High, High was new. Listen to what the man said. So these were songs that I liked new. Same way that I got into Star Wars, it was new. But then, in the late 70s, around the time of London Town, when I heard With a Little Luck, there was the touring Broadway show, Beatlemania.
Yeah.
And Beatlemania came to Philadelphia, came to the U.S. Came to Philadelphia, and there was a commercial that showed not the performers from Beatlemania, it showed the Beatles.
Right.
So my dad, I'll never forget, he goes, Scott, he held up London Town, holds up Band on the Run. He said, you like these albums, right?
Yeah.
He goes, this guy is this guy. So that whole Paul McCartney was in a band before Wings. That is a joke for a reason.
That's a joke.
It's legit.
But, yeah.
It is legit. It exists for a reason. So from that point on, my parents had Pepper.
Yeah.
They had Abbey Road, but they had, a lot of people are now they know Beatles for Sale. They know Rubber Soul. They know With the Beatles.
Yeah.
Please Please Me. But we had Beatles 6, Beatles 65, Something New, Beatles' second album, Meet the Beatles. They had them all scratched up like crazy. That is how I discovered the Beatles.
Pretty organically.
And talk about organic.
Yeah.
It got really organic in 1987 when I was up at Penn State University. Macuga, Mantz and Macuga, Wild Man and Mantz Man together. So I was up at Penn State the summer of 87. It was June of 87. And everyone, all the TV shows, the news shows, the radio DJs, celebrating the 20th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper.
Right.
So my college roommate, huge music buff, walls and walls and walls of vinyl. He said, Sgt. Pepper is coming out on CD today. We have to get it.
Compact disc. We
bought
the long
the CD.
cardboard boxes attached to it.
Oh, yeah. So we got the album, got the CD, got high as a friggin' kite, and my mind was blown. Yeah. And that was how I really got into the Beatles.
Really turned it on.
And
turned me on, didn't
but I was also buying the CDs that had come out at that time. And a lot of my friends who are into music, who are into the Beatles, they like the later Beatles. They like the drugged out Beatles of Abbey Road and the White Album.
That's me a little bit, but
okay.
Yeah.
See, I prefer the Beatles like you just described, those mop tops. I like them happy-go-lucky. That's why I love A Hard Day's Night.
Oh, God, that's a great movie.
I mean, it's just a great movie. It is irresistible.
It is.
And they just looked like they were having the time of their lives. Yeah. It's infectious.
Yeah.
And it's hard to believe that Hard Day's Night had its world premiere in London on July 6, 1964. Less than 5 years later, those happy-go-lucky looking mop tops looked like they were miserable making Let It Be. When you watch
with
Let
their
It
facial
Be,
hairs,
with the facial hair,
and
there's that whole exchange where
I'll
Paul
play
and George,
what you want, Paul.
Or I won't play at all. Whatever that pleases you, I'll do it. Oh my God, he's like trying to. Oh, it's torture. It's so. But as a critic, that is what makes the movie unique and powerful and fascinating. Is that it shows the Beatles breaking up
at Twickenham Studios at 10 a.m.
It's freezing.
Yeah,
and they were not morning people.
We can't make music then.
But
Yoko, they were in the bed. Yeah.
Listen, there are certain Beatles songs that I'm sick to death of.
Yeah.
Like, if I never hear Yesterday or Let It Be or The Long Winding Road, ever again, I'm okay with that.
You're okay with it.
But there are certain popular Beatles songs, that I love, and I will listen to them over and over again. My all-time favorite Beatles song, I forget who asked me this the other day at the comic party. It might have been Macuga. He says, "What's your favorite Beatles song?" Oh, it was Ellis. Mark Ellis asked. I said, "She Loves You."
Yeah,
because
that's right.
2.5 minutes, it's all
perfect
there.
Pop, man.
Perfect song. Everything about the early Beatles, the yeahs, the woos. It is a 50-50, a true 50-50 Lennon-McCartney collaboration.
Back there,
they sat staring at each other with acoustic guitars, wrote the song together.
Yeah.
Not, mostly Paul and John helped out, or mostly John and Paul helped out. They wrote that baby together.
George Bitter in the corner. Yeah, absolutely.
George Bitter in the corner.
Yeah.
And if you ask me, I think that She Loves You is a better song than I Want to Hold Your Hand. It has more energy.
I would agree.
I Want to Hold Your Hand is great.
Yeah, that era is great. Yeah, and you touched on one of the things I can't fathom is the time period in terms of how short amount of time they were around. One of my old DJ coworkers when I was working in rock DJ in the late 80s, late 90s, he was like, tried to tell me that Metallica was the better band because Metallica lasted longer. I was like, well, and look, Metallica's you're comparing two different things, number one, and I can appreciate and admire Metallica for what they've accomplished, but the Beatles did this in like 5 years, man. They changed the world like twice in 5 years.
The evolution.
Yeah.
Look at 1963. They're singing "She Loves You," yeah. 6 years later, I'm sorry. Scratch it. 3 years later, they are singing "Turn Off Your Mind, Relax, and Float Downstream."
This is not dying. Oh. Yeah, and then a couple. That's what I was saying. Then 3 years later, they're different again. And when I was in radio at the time, like here's the second album. It took 4 years to make for this band, and a lot of that's became again because it's become a business and there's touring, and then the studio or the record companies might not let you. I get it. The Beatles were of their time, but that's an insane thing to comprehend.
1963, the Beatles had 2 full-length albums, plus 4 singles.
Yeah.
Like "She Loves You," "I Want to Hold Your Hand," "Please," "For Me to You," they're not on albums.
Right.
They were singles. They were released singles and they were released albums. Same thing with 1964. They had 2 full-length albums and like 3 singles. 65, 2 full-length albums, 2 or 3 singles.
We talked about the other night at Meltdown. We were talking about November 66. You got Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane, followed by Pepper in April.
Yep.
And by like the end of the year, you got Magical Mystery Tour.
Yes.
Like that's 1 year's worth of work.
And
it's a lifetime in a year.
The evolution. It's just the evolution. Like when you listen to, I like Help. I think Help is a great pop album. It's not groundbreaking, but I love The Night Before. I love You're Gonna Lose That Girl. You Like Me Too Much. You know?
Yeah.
And then next album is Rubber Soul, which is very sort of like spare, like the lyrics are more mature.
Yeah.
And then the next year you've got
Revolver. Yeah. And I don't think Rubber Soul gets the credit as much for being the transition album that it is, but Revolver is the one that was maybe in some ways more revolutionary than Pepper.
I'm with you.
Because Pepper was exact, as you know, basically a call to Brian Wilson and Pet Sounds going, okay, we like that, we'll do this now. But Revolver is one that kind of was like, whoa, Taxman and all this stuff. I totally
love the beginning of that album when you hear it. 1, 2, 3. 1, go, boom, bam, boom, bam, boom, bam.
Yeah.
It's just great. But even though I would say that Sgt. Pepper is the album in 87, that it came out 67, 87, when I really listened to it that night in Penn State, that was the album that turned me into from someone who liked the Beatles to being a Beatles fan.
Yeah.
But over the years, and it didn't take that long actually, it's still not an album that I would That's still not a go-to album.
I don't put it in a lot.
I don't either.
And for me, we talked about my first time experience in the Beatles was in a tent at a slumber party in 1987 when I was in 6th grade. My friend Sean Phillips, my good buddy now out in Vegas, my music and sports guru, taught me everything I needed to know in 6th and 7th grade in pop culture, man. And he literally handed me this beat-up cassette at my friend Brandon Bean's house at Brandon's birthday party. And Sean goes, "Hey, man, you ever heard the Beatles?" Now, we didn't toke one up like you did, my friend, but we probably had some high C or apple juice at this roasted a marshmallow and listened to this thing, and I just don't know what it was. It was mystical, man. It was mystical.
When you listen, see, the thing about Pepper is you listen to it whole. You didn't listen to the individual songs.
Right.
It is a whole album. It is a complete body of work.
Yeah.
Where together, as a whole, the songs elevate each other. If you listen to Getting Better is a great song.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely Rita, great song. Listening to Sky with Diamonds, great
Fixing
song.
a Hole.
But together, the way they elevate each other, when you go from the opening crowd of Sgt. Pepper to okay, the Sgt. Pepper reprise, and then you hear the guitar come in, and then the piano. I read the news today, the echo, and then the last piano fade out into eternity. It makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. But song for song, Revolver is a better album.
By far, I would say.
When you listen to She Said, She Said, Dr. Roberts, and Your Bird Can Sing, Tomorrow Never Knows,
Norwegian Wood, man. Come on, man.
Taxman, and I want to tell you, my head is filled with things to say. Oh, it's just great. And these guys made it look so easy. They made it look so easy.
And I get nowadays, I mean, it seems like a new generation ever discovers them organically on their own, too. And I think that will always be the case. But you definitely, as I've gotten older in time, even when I was in rock radio in the 90s, man, it was, some people's lost on them a little bit. And I understand, look, if you like the Stones better than that, you like the Who. I know some people I love the Who, but,
love the Who.
You know, Pink Floyd, I get it. This might not be, it's 3 chords, it's 3 minutes, and it's love, man, it's love. So maybe the Beatles aren't your thing, but you cannot take away what the Beatles created in the studio. What they are to me, the template for every band that came after on how to do it, how not to do it. When I'm in sound recording class in college and they go, oh, here's this message, this method, it's called flanging. The creator was John Lennon.
Oh, wow.
You know, like, come on.
Like, okay.
Yeah,
it just brought you closer to it, didn't it?
Yeah.
When I learned how to play guitar, it was definitely like, wow, I can actually play these songs now. Like, it brought it closer. But in the world of music, there is the Beatles, and then there's everything else.
Yeah, for me,
it really is. Because what happens, Ken, is I listen to the Beatles, or I listen to McCartney or Lennon or Harrison. Sorry, Ringo. What happens is I'll listen to them, I'll get into them, I'll listen to them a lot, especially when I'm running.
Come easy.
God bless you, Ringo. But then I won't listen to them for a while. Then I'll transfer to maybe the Stones or the Beach Boys or the Byrds, which are a very underrated band, or the Doors. I mean, that's my time.
Roger McGuinn, baby.
Or listen, Roger McGuinn without Rickenbacker. He was inspired by A Hard Day's Night. But a lot of other music. I mean, I like the Police. I like Genesis. That's who I grew up with. I love Oasis. We talked about
Oasis. That's man, love my Manchester boys.
But what happens is, after some time away from the Beatles, then I go back to them.
Oh, you're so right.
And I just go,
yes. Here's what I find too, in the age of iTunes and digital music and everything, I don't have a CD player that works in my car, so I can't just listen to albums as much anymore. As an old music DJ and a music critic, used to write for my website years ago, Tiny Mixtape. So I bemoan the loss of just an album. It's harder to. It's just so used to songs, and you make a list or a playlist or something. I find that very, very rarely do I put a Beatles song on any kind of other playlist I have. I'll listen to a lot of other stuff and stuff I love, like Oasis or Ryan Adams is one of my, not Brian, Ryan, a lot of things like that. The Beatles don't find a way into that list because to me it's so hard. They are the Beatles. They are this thing above, and I'm just like you. I sometimes get mad at myself because I don't know that song, track 4 on Revolver. I don't know what it is as I did in my childhood or my youth. So I get mad at myself, like, God, the 17-year-old you would hate yourself. But then I do what you do. I'll just play the Beatles on my iTunes on the way and get lost.
Well, the other thing is that there are a lot of other musicians. They'll have playlists. Yeah. And with the Beatles, especially with certain albums, I will only listen to the full album.
Yes.
Because I want to experience the wholeness of it. I mean, my favorite, we talked about this, my favorite Beatles, whether it's Beatles album or Beatles solo, my number one favorite album of all time is Band on the Run.
All right.
A lot of it's sentimental and nostalgia.
Absolutely.
But it is an album that I purposely do not listen to a lot because I don't want to get sick of it.
Yeah.
It is an album that when I listen to it, I want to feel from the opening guitar, bow, 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 bow.
Yeah, I know what you mean from start to finish. Paul Simon Graceland, that is a life-changing album for me. So that's
Great.
I usually only listen to that when I know I can listen to the album in a whole. Yeah.
And just to veer off from one Paul to another.
Yeah.
Graceland and by extension Rhythm of the Saints.
Scott Mantz, this is why we're friends.
Yes, sir.
Scott, Rhythm of the Saints is one of the most underrated albums that it followed a monster.
I prefer Rhythm over Graceland.
Really? I don't.
Yes, I
don't. But oh wow, we could talk for off about that. There's some great stuff.
Great stuff. On first of all, I mean Graceland, Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes, Under African Skies. Is a
song, I appreciate a lot more now as an adult than when I was younger. But
I get.
It's an emotional journey.
It's an emotional journey, and then Crazy Love Part 2 is a beautiful song. Great.
The moment he starts singing too in the all around the last one about over the mountain down in the valley, listen, former talk show host. He's talking about Burbank and everything. Like now I'm like now that song has more meaning to me than it did 10 years ago. 15 years ago. But God, Rhythm of the Saints, man. Rhythm
of the Saints, okay. I mean, The Obvious Child. What a way to open the album.
Obvious Child.
And then the next song is just can't run, but I can walk much faster. Can't run, but
yeah.
And then The Coast. Beautiful song. And then the way that the next few songs, and then it plays out to the song Rhythm of the Saints with them chanting, and then it fades away.
Yes.
And I'm just like, holy moly! That album took me to another world.
It did. I'm getting up the track listing right now. She Moves On, Born at the Right Time. Born at the Right Time
is great.
Yeah. Oh my God, Scotty Mantz. We should just talk about
Rhythm
music
of the Saints.
Drink whiskey all night. And who's your favorite Beatle? Let's get back to the Fab Four. You're a Paul guy.
Far and away, I'm a Paul guy.
Which is why you were so excited about seeing McCartney last night, weren't you?
Paul. I love his music with the Beatles. I mean, I love John and George and all those guys, but
sure.
But Paul.
Hey man, I even like Pete best.
His wow, you're really forgiving. Paul's music after the Beatles was so. It's interesting. It's so all over the place.
It's also maligned at times, unfortunately.
But when he's capable of greatness, like he is with Band on the Run and with Tug of War, okay, and Ram is a great album.
Ram on.
But when you hear an album like McCartney 2, okay, McCartney 2 I didn't like for a long time, but now I love it because it was interesting that after the Beatles broke up, he did McCartney. After Wings broke up, he did McCartney 2. And McCartney 2, the stuff on that album is so experimental. Temporary Secretary is the ultimate love it or hate it song.
Right.
Temporary Secretary.
Because if he wanted to, he'd take little risks and do. And he himself says that he doesn't get enough credit for being the artsy one in the Beatles,
right?
Getting there before John, according. I think they'll always have until the bitter end. He'll have that little bit of competition in his heart.
Sure, even to this day.
But I think for me, McCartney. He became so maligned. I get it. He became, maybe in the 80s he got a little lazy, like a lot of artists might do at some point.
Yep.
We never got to see John in that period, unfortunately.
Right.
Would have loved to have the chance, but we never saw John, guesting on a Nirvana.
Pipes of Peace, Press to Play, not good albums.
Give my regards to Broad Street or all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the 80s were bad.
We never saw that, but I think McCartney. He's not just still capable of it. He still delivers some amazing songwriting.
Yes, he does.
And this last album he has out new,
great album.
I'm trying to get the album up here.
You know what song is great on new? Queenie Eye.
Queenie Eye.
Queenie Eye. Who's got the ball? I in a pocket. It isn't in my pocket. O-U-T spells out. Out. That's out. Out. With the shadow of a doubt.
We just got to do some
great
private home Beatle Paul karaoke.
I'm down for that.
I'm a horrible singer, but we do. His song "Early Days" is on that album.
Yep, great.
It's a heart wrenching one for me. It just has this tone to it I love.
Everybody Out There is a good song.
Yeah,
and the album, his recent work in the last 10 years, often overlooked and underrated, but the 2005 album. Chaos and Creation in the Backyard is in my top 5 as among his very best albums.
There's some, we were talking about that, and so I it's funny. This iTunes, I had to change computers, and so a lot of my stuff is up in storage.
Right.
I don't have anything from that album on this iTunes. It's disappointing.
But that album is in a lot of ways, it's like Peppers and it's like Band on the Run in the sense that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Right.
That is also an album where I only listen to it when I know that I can listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's usually like when I'm running or if I'm going on a long drive, like when I drove to San Diego for Comic-Con, I did listen to Chaos and Creation. Yeah. And there's no rocker on the album, but there's no sappy McCartney ballad either. Right. It just for whatever reason, that album was perfect.
There is. I'm getting the track listing on that too. Thanks for Napzok Files fans for hanging through this. We're just having fun. Too Much Rain.
Too Much Rain
is one of my favorite McCartney songs of all time. It even beats some of the Beatles songs.
No kidding.
A certain thing I have. Jenny Wren's a great one too. English Tea's fun.
My favorite song on this album, one of my favorite Paul McCartney songs of all time, track number 2, How Kind of You
Yes.
to Think of Me.
Yep.
It is such a...
Yep.
Now, he wrote that song while he was with Heather.
Yeah.
Okay, but when you listen to the lyrics of that song, I feel like you wrote it for Linda.
Yeah, you said that, and I listened to it again the other night, and I think you might be right.
I mean, just the feeling behind that song, you know, because he had gone through so much after the breakup of the Beatles, and Linda really got him out of bed and made him start doing music again. The lyrics to that song, it's got Linda's name
and
all
then
over it.
we're still on McCartney. Memory Almost Full. Dance Tonight is classic fun McCartney. I love that song.
Yeah.
It's not great. It is what it is.
But Ever Present Past.
Ever Present Past is great. And then End of the End, which starts with on the day that I die. I mean, and you're hearing this as a Beatles fan, and here's McCartney singing on the day that I die. I want stories to be told. Like, it's an emotional song. I'm getting chills thinking about it now. I love this song. I love his work, and I'm glad we share in that.
Yes.
Where he is not the feathered hair McCartney singing, love songs. Yeah. With Linda, who I think he had every right to choose whoever the hell he wanted to perform with.
Yep, I agree.
And he took a lot of crap.
He wanted her on stage.
That's. It was what it was, and I never got the heaping of scorn on him for that.
What ultimately sold me with Paul's relationship with Linda was this: they were together nonstop except for 8 days, and 7 of those days were when Paul was busted in Japan.
In Japan for marijuana, yeah.
But that relationship, and I remember when I was in my darkest hour, feeling like I was never going to meet anybody, thinking like, see, that's the kind of relationship I want. This really loving, nurturing, supportive, a respectful relationship that they had with each other, and they really loved each other.
Partnership.
29 years.
Yeah.
My people, friends, acquaintances, so many people know, and my reputation, my love for the Beatles precedes me before I even walk in the room. That when Linda died on April 17th, 1998, I got home that day before I had heard the news, and there were messages on my answer machine from 4 different people. That's how I found out about it.
Really?
My friend Scott called me and says, "Hey, hope you're doing okay. I just heard Linda McCartney passed away. Really sorry." Beep. "Hey, Scott, it's Jane. Just checking to make sure you're okay." Like, I knew her.
I get people. I got similar things about George Harrison's death. George was my guy.
But the fact that Paul was able to pick himself up, he met someone else that did not work out, cost him a fortune.
Cost him a lot.
But he picked himself up again, and he seems like he's doing okay this time. And he still has that thumbs up, positive. He's an approachable guy. He's a generous guy. I mean, I don't know him personally, but I did meet him a few times. You want to hear a good story?
I want to hear a good story.
Okay, this is a great story. This is a great story. This is just for you.
An
exclusive, just for you.
Exclusive to the Napzok Files listening family.
My first dance at my wedding was My Love. That was the song. And I always, growing up, I always wanted that song to be my first. And when I go away, I know my heart can stay with my love. Whoa, 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 whoa. That was the song. So I finally get married. That's our first dance. Not a Beatles song, a McCartney song. Now, I'm a member of the Broadcast Film Critics Association.
Right.
At the Critics' Choice Awards, 2 months later, Paul McCartney's song for that movie, Everything's Fine, Everybody's Fine with Robert De Niro. It was called I Want to Come Home. It was nominated for a Critics' Choice Award. So I was like, oh my God, I think Paul McCartney might be at the awards. So I'm sitting at the table with my wife, and I'm sitting at the Star Trek table with Chris Pine and Zach Quinto.
Nice.
Could not have been happier.
Nice.
So I look 3 tables over. There's Paul McCartney.
Oh, wow.
And he's not, he's sitting with Nancy, but it's not like he's got an entourage around him. So at the first commercial break, I grabbed Andrea's arm, and it was like a cartoon where I'm running over and she's just sort of like flying behind me. So I go over, and he's sitting there. He turns around, and I just said, "Hi, Paul." He gets up, turns around, shakes his hand, shakes my hand. He says, "Hello, Scott." And And I said, great to meet you, Paul. And I said, my name is Scott, and this is my wife Andrea. And you know, I just started to say, like, our first dance, the first song that we ever danced to was My Love. So Paul goes like, he's like, oh my God. He gives us both a hug. He gives Andrea a kiss. And I said, and she goes, wait, Scott, tell him what song you walked down the aisle to. And I said it was And I Love Her. He goes, oh wow, that's really, really great. So I said, hey, when are you touring again? And this was in January of 2010. He goes, probably in the next few months you'll probably see me play in LA. And on March 30th he played Hollywood Bowl. So he knew. But then, so I'm telling you, for like 5 minutes, no one was lined up to meet him. Yeah. You know, he wasn't like distracted. Oh, hey man, hey.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
It was like this.
You and him.
So then the music started to play for everybody to sit back down in their chairs. And so Paul looks at us and he goes, just be good to each other. Be good to each other and love each other. And we looked at each other and we're like, oh, thank you. You know, go and sit down. I sit down and there I'm sitting next to Chris Pine.
Yeah.
And, you know, Andrea's sitting next to John Cho, and I'm sitting there like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Paul just like blessed our marriage.
Yeah.
So
he just gave you love advice.
Like,
oh, I don't know what I'd do.
I could have said like, hey man, Band and Run, I love that album. It's the first time I ever heard. But I made it personal. Yeah. And I told him that My First Dance was a song that he wrote for Linda.
Right.
That must have hurt. That must have touched him.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could tell his reaction was, oh,
absolutely.
Just went, oh, thank you.
Right.
I mean, man.
Man.
I'll always have that, Ken.
You'll always, again, you deserve it because you put yourself in those moments and you open yourself up to those moments, Scott. That's what you do, and that's a perfect way to kind of wrap up the show. We could probably be talking about Beatles for a long time. We didn't even get into Oasis, and we could have a lager and talk about that, maybe get in a fist fight in a bar, talk about Oasis. But, man, it has been, Mantz, it has been a great time getting to know you on air and now off air, and I hope we can continue.
Looking forward to that.
I might need to grab a gentleman drink with you one day off air.
Definitely.
And maybe we'll just sing some Beatles karaoke in a privacy of our own party.
Really enjoying getting to know you on air, off air, and let the hits will just keep on coming. Ken.
Absolutely. Where can the fine folks, the Napzok Files listening audience, find your work right now?
Well, most of it is on my personal website at Movie Mantz. That's with a TZ.com. Right. I put all my reviews there, all the on-camera work I've done for Access Hollywood, for Just Seen It, for KTLA, for the Today Show, and I'm definitely going to be posting the link to Profiles with Malone and Mantz, and hopefully a lot more stuff I'm going to hopefully do for Schmoes now, because I sure do love those guys.
You can find that one on Schmoes No Network on iTunes. Subscribe, rate, and review to that one, just like you're going to do for the Napzok Files, right, folks? And find us on Facebook. We have a page there for you to like, the Napzok Files. You can follow me at Twitter at Ken Napzok, and Scott at
Movie Mantz with a TZ.
TZ. And we've got some the Napzok Files back up and running here. We got some great episodes, some guests. We got Ms. Malone coming in a little bit later to do a one-on-one and talk about all her favorite movies. So that's going to be about a 5-hour podcast.
Yep.
But it's been great having you in, man. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. You're a jet setter. But I appreciate you stopping by. So until next time, this has been Ken Napzok for Scott Mantz and the Napzok Files. We will see you next time.